Hi, everybody. I know I'm full of surprises. It is Monday. Yeah, but this is a special Monday because we're celebrating my father's 91st birthday. 91. That's a big one. 91. Can you imagine? Somehow I don't see myself living that long. But man, 91 years of age. So this afternoon and this evening, we're celebrating his birthday. So I can't do the show at the regular time. And I didn't want to bother the panelists with all this last minute hoopla. I've just got a few things on my mind that I want to talk about. And hello to CO Dead, who just happened to jump into the chat room. I kind of organized this short program into a few things that I think are necessary to talk about. The first one is obviously Baker Mayfield and his extension. And what we're going to eventually do is get into what I feel are the greatest indicators that the Browns are either going to have a good season, a mediocre season, or a bad season this upcoming year. Then, of course, we'll have a Friday show, which will be dedicated to our little pregame of the first preseason opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So today is more of our analysis day. The Baker Mayfield situation, of course, rendered more interesting by the $258 million signing of Josh Allen by the Buffalo Bills. Now, this obviously is the way the Bills front office has attacked this issue. The Browns front office isn't dealing with this in exactly the same way. For his part, Baker Mayfield is saying he doesn't really give a flying fuck what the press is saying about, what he's going to get paid, this, that, and the other, that he's out on the field to perform and that winning is what's most important to him. The Browns, what they're waiting for, is really hard to say because now the first domino's fallen and now it leaves Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield to come up with their deals. I think most people believe that it's a bad idea to wait until the beginning of the season or during the season to negotiate something like this. And we have several weeks to get this done, folks. And I think it will get done before the regular season begins. But again, the more distractions there are, the worse off you are. I mean, plain and simple. Quarterbacks can be fragile, not just physically, but emotionally. And, Baker Mayfield's going to make his money and he's going to make big money, whether the Browns wait till later or pull the trigger within the next few weeks. He's going to make a lot of money. He's going to get an extension, but there's no reason to leave any question, doubt, or bad blood between the player and the organization. So what the organization is waiting for, I think they're probably looking to take care of other deals first, figuring that they have several weeks to get this done. I just hope Jimmy Haslam has nothing to do with this, okay? As long as you can convince me of that, I'm good to go. Baker Mayfield is the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, will be the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. It's not a definitive thing that he is going to be great or he is going to be diminished, but the track record shows that his head is screwed on straight. He's gotten himself in very good physical and mental condition for the upcoming season. He made a lot of strides last year in the first year under Kevin Stefanski's system. There's no reason in the world why, with a good mental approach to the game, that there won't be more progress made in that regard. I'm not worried about it, and I know that it's a source of conversation. And I'll say this about the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills need Josh Allen in a way that other organizations might not need a quarterback, because it's been since Jim Kelly that they actually had one. And it's not like Buffalo was living in the playoffs. That's not the case. And it's not like Buffalo has been talked about as a power in the East for some time. But with the Patriots dying down and with Brady's departure and Cam Newton's ascendance, they are suddenly more than human. And the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins are the two teams in the East who look to duke things out. I think that Tua is a guy that they're hoping they can build around in Miami. But in Buffalo, the question that reigns supreme is whether Josh Allen had the biggest year you could possibly have as him that led to this $258 million deal, or is this going to be the future every year from him? The accuracy statistics on him are interesting, and I'm looking these up now because I quite literally decided to do this program at the last minute, and I'm kind of doing this solo. His statistics, it's not like there's, here, we're talking about a grand total of 3 years, just like with Baker, but 52.8%, 58.8%, and then 69.2. That's a massive leap in completion percentage from 1 year to the next. And it looks like an aberration to me. I don't believe that Josh Allen can complete nearly 70% of his passes in the system, in the situation that he's in. I think he had a fantastic year. I think he's earned his money. I've certainly got nothing against the young man. He did throw twice as many interceptions percentage-wise, but if you look at how many passes he threw, my goodness, he attempted 572 passes last year and completed 396 of them. And it's not like these were dink and dunk patterns, folks. He was completing almost 70% of passes that were basically in the range of 11 and a half yards per. And this has been very consistent for him. In his 3 years, the yards per catch at 12.3, 11.4, and 11.5. That hasn't changed at all. It's just his efficiency became a whole lot better. Interceptions, really, from a percentage perspective, honestly, 12 his first year, 9 his second year, 10 his second year. These are not a lot of interceptions. For a guy who throws downfield as much as he does, the issue with him was sailing the ball and using too much gun on the ball and throwing through his receivers or slightly behind or over his receivers. But the ball is thrown so hard that it's not easy to intercept either. So, and he's capable of throwing the long ball at any moment. Baker Mayfield, on the other hand, had a really big step-up season last year, but there were reasons. What preceded this was instability, and this is the first year that we're going to get an idea of what Baker looks like in the same system back-to-back years. But again, I personally think that Josh Allen cannot possibly put up the numbers. I mean, his yardage at 4,544 yards with a nearly 70% completion percentage seems rather unrealistic to me. So that's that. So everyone knows that, yes, I want Baker around, but I have no control any more than Baker does. It's up to Baker's agent and the Browns. I hope that Jimmy Haslam doesn't fuck around with this and create a seed of doubt within his quarterback's mind and gives him a wandering eye. This is certainly not a time for that. The next thing I want to talk about is Takk McKinley. And I cast an allusion to this on the last program. Takk McKinley is a guy who started out really strong with the Atlanta Falcons. And then all of a sudden, I will read from an article, and this is before this whole preseason started, and I'll quote, Takk McKinley admitted that he lost himself and the way he wanted to play football a couple of years ago, en route to his tenure with the Atlanta Falcons unraveling. But McKinley said at that time, before, everything had started for the, as far as practices, that he has a great mindset and is thankful to join the Browns, yada, yada, yada. Sometimes a fresh start is the best thing for everyone, McKinley said, and I'm just very, very excited to be part of the Cleveland Browns, knowing how bad they wanted me. Well, if you haven't gone online and taken a look at the infamous press conference that Tack McKinley delivered while he was a member of the Atlanta Falcons, it was, oh, hi, little little TYG. How you doing? It's good to see you. It's like, hi there, Brother Moo. Hi there. It's me, Bullwinkle. All right. Tack McKinley was a guy who really figured in the plans of the Falcons, and it suddenly all dried up. And a lot of people were asking, what happened to this guy? His numbers diminished, and he looked like he was lost on the field. He wasn't putting out full effort. And, and then people say, wow, the Browns got him. They didn't really have to give up that much to get him. And this was kind of a prove-it contract. And now what we have is no Tack McKinley. And the Browns aren't saying what the problem is, but I think that it's time that somebody might take a gander at this, and I'm going to give it a shot. The headline says Browns to be without Tack McKinley for a while, but I listened to what Kevin Stefanski says, and he says defensive end Tack McKinley remains away from the team for personal reasons. Stefanski doesn't have a date. He expects him to return. Stefanski said he's hopeful McKinley will return in time for the start of the season. Now, with this in mind, with all the competition that's going on as far as the Browns heading into preseason and people fighting for roster positions, Tack McKinley is a non-factor. I hinted at this in my last program that I had a bad feeling, and now I have a worse feeling. I have a feeling that the problem with Tack McKinley is Tack McKinley. And I think they're claiming that he has an illness, and I would not be surprised if at first they said it was a family excuse, and now they're saying it's an illness, and I'm not sure which is which until I look at the possibility of mental illness being a factor in this. Whenever people take sudden turns for the downside, you wonder what happens to an athlete. In a game like football that's as collisional and difficult as it is, and with the initial success that Tack McKinley had, you don't know what he got into. Is it mental illness? Is it substance abuse? We can sit there and guess whatever the hell it is, but it is not normal in a situation where everyone's fighting for a position, and this guy was supposed to be an important role player in our pass rush to spell our two main guys, Clowney and Myles Garrett, and he's nowhere to be seen, and no explanation forthcoming. Whenever I've seen no explanation forthcoming, it's one of those two things. It's either a mental illness or it's a substance abuse issue that the team doesn't feel like it should, nor should it, divulge that to the public. It becomes private business. And when somebody's return is, gosh, we kind of hope he'll be back for the beginning of the season, don't count on it. Don't count on it. This player has had problems in the past, and I'm quite certain that something has gone bluey here. And the Browns didn't invest, well, at least by football standards, that much money in him. And life goes on, and we'll find our secondary pass rush someplace else. But it's my belief that Tack McKinley will never play it down for the Cleveland Browns. I think that he has a real problem, and I hope he gets that problem straightened out, whatever it is. But I think it's a mistake to say that he's leaving for family reasons and then to say it's an illness. What that does is it contributes to the question mark being asked by, well, more curious people like myself, not people like Mary Kay Cabbagehead and the organization who's just ignoring this as a whole. This is the way I see football having dealt with drug problems and mental illness in the past, is to bury it and not get involved with it at all. I'm still convinced that's one of the reasons that my buddy Sam Ritigliano was let go unceremoniously. When it wasn't his fault, it was Paul McDonald's fault. He had no quarterback to work with. But that inner circle that he really got started in the 70s, which was a great initiative for people like Charles White to try to get their lives together, I think that he paid a price for that. I think the NFL just doesn't want its name next to either substance abuse or mental illness. And it's just kind of the way it goes. So, whatever the case is, I'm checking Tack McKinley off my list as far as things to talk about because I don't think there's anything to talk about. The next thing I want to talk about is Karamoa. When you see Karamoa lining up on the field, wearing number 28 in the field, he does not look like a linebacker in any way, shape, or form. He looks like a safety to me. And the way that he scoots around the corner and dips his shoulder, he looks like he's a blitzing safety. But he looks awfully light to be a linebacker to me, which again makes me wonder. The eye test is important to me. You can say everything you want to say about a guy who plays, hey, when he was with Notre Dame, he did this, and this. And boy, he was known for making ferocious tackles. He's playing against bigger, faster boys in the NFL. And I wonder about his size. And watching him line up out there in practice, I got to be honest with you, I don't see how he is going to be able to manhandle offensive linemen who are coming at him in the second, and he's the second wave, of course, and going to the second level. Any offensive linemen who are coming, how he's going to possibly fare from a strength perspective. And I know that Kevin Stefanski's not stupid. I'm not suggesting that Karamoa is a starting football player, but I think they will have uses for him. But do not be surprised if you find him in more passing down situations as a guy who will technically play an outside linebacker position that is really designed to get more to the outside and pass rush the quarterback, as opposed, because I don't even see that a guy like that at that size is going to be able to bring down tight ends consistently. I mean, that's just... it's a question mark. And as camp continues and as we see him in the preseason, what I want to see is in an open field situation, if he can hit somebody and drive them backwards, besides, wide receivers, I want to see what he can do, as far as tight ends, as far as closing in on the ball and running backs, especially. Because we know how large running backs can be in the NFL, whether he has the ability in a collisional sense to be able to prevent the yards after a contact. Hey, and there's my man, Jason. Well, thank you. It's nice to be back. And I'm going to be here all season, so you'll be sick of me by the end of the season. I'm being asked a question. Which player out of the new additions will have the best season in your opinion? I think everything is going to be comparative. The defense has so much ground to gain that I have to feel that one of these young men in the defensive backfield, and I was sorry to see that Delpit now is nursing a hamstring injury. These things scare me too. Guy comes off of a major knee problem and then starts having soft tissue injuries. Is he favoring? Is he coming back too soon? And, is this the beginning of something not good? So Delpit is falling behind as far as, where we would want him to be. And, he's basically day to day with a hamstring. They're going to take no chances with that because he's an important piece for this team to see what he can do. Of the new additions, I want to say the people who are in pass coverage, because they're going to make the biggest difference. I'm not going to tell you who numerically is going to have a great season. I would say that you're going to know by looking at where the Browns fall in total defense. And they are rated, the Browns, to have the 18th best defense, which isn't very good. And if the Browns really want to make a deep playoff run, the Browns have to be somewhere in the range of 12th in defensive rating in the NFL and not give up the big plays that they've been giving up. And that falls into the realm of our coverage guys. Um, but statistically, as far as like who's going to intercept the most passes, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as a Hanford Dixon and Frank Mayfield thing. It's, do you stop the forward pass? Do you have the ability to have Denzel Ward on an island with one guy? Teams now have more than one, option at wide receiver to throw to. And you got to have a second really good pass defender. And I'll sit here and and try to answer your question, because I hate to, we have guys like Tony Fields, Richard LeCount, and Demetric Felton. It's like, nah, these are people who are not going to, if anything, backup guys who, I would say that Greg Newsome is going to be exceedingly important for this team. And if anyone of the new guys is going to get the most opportunity, I would say he's one of them. So this is a sink or swim situation. And we're going to see what he's like covering the number 2 receiver against NFL teams. 26th pick, really a good aggressive player. So, I'm looking at Greg Newsome as having the best opportunity to have a breakout season. Of the other guys, you look at Karamoa, and Karamoa is a guy who, like I said, I only see him in a spot sense. I don't see him as being like the guy who's going to be the best of the guys who we selected. Anthony Schwartz, I think, was a bad pick. And I think that it's, again, unfortunately, coming to form here that he has hamstring trouble again. This has been bothering him since college, and now it's carried with him into the pros. I don't think that he has, and believe me, it doesn't matter how fast you are if you have a bad hamstring. That just doesn't matter. I think there could be some surprises. And, I would say a tackle like James Hudson III, there's a possibility that a guy like this could come a step forward because it's wide open on the defensive line. And a guy like this could be a surprise. Now, granted, in college at Cincinnati, not necessarily the greatest competition that he's up against, but he showed signs there of really being able to push the line of scrimmage backwards. And again, he's not going to be a starter, but he's the kind of guy who might get reps early in the year, and if he does well, he might end up becoming a starter, because the people who we have who are veterans up front are older guys, and they could get hurt. In a 17-game season, anything is possible. So put me down for either Greg Newsome or James Hudson III as my guesses as who's going to make the biggest impact. Now as far as Togiai as a defensive tackle, I don't know. Again, there are question marks about Togiai as far as his athleticism and whether he was just kind of picking low-hanging fruit at Ohio State. So I don't know about that. So I'll take care of little TYG. He's saying the same thing that I'm saying. I think Newsome has an incredible opportunity to get a lot of snaps. And I think you're really going to have to look at his growth predicated upon what he's like at the end of the year compared to the beginning. He's going to get picked on. All rookies do. And I think that he's going to be ready. And Greedy Williams, I don't know. His physical status, again, missing practices, patterns tend to develop about players. So that's what I would say to answer that question for you. So we basically have covered the Baker Mayfield thing, and we've talked a little bit about as far as the younger players on the team. Uh, what is the package here? What is the story of what we have to do to get all the way into the Super Bowl, which I know is asking a hell of a lot. But the people at ESPN have given the Browns a 5% chance of making it to the Super Bowl, and that's a diminished chance, and strictly because the Ravens and the Browns are both in the same division and playing each other twice in a season. And the Browns have not shown the ability really to dominate or to figure out how to stop Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position. But this is where kind of things come together for me. The Ravens are one football team, and we tend to build teams up into something that they're not. You can't go in afraid. I think people were afraid. We barely eked by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the final game of the season, and then we were going to face the full bore, fully loaded Steelers with Big Ben, and you saw what happened. The Steelers literally were a hot mess, and the Browns just wiped them out. And nobody would have predicted that kind of an outcome. Again, the Browns have shown no such, except on one occasion, beating the Ravens by getting ahead and taking a lead and running away early with the game, forcing them into a different game strategy. What I will say is this: all the talk about the Ravens, and Lamar Jackson has come out and he has, again, I find him, and it's not that I have anything against this quarterback, and I want to point this out, that this is not somebody like I think he's a douchebag or something like that. It isn't that. But there's a certain arrogance about him, and I think comeuppance is coming. And not in the form of injury. I ask a question to any Ravens fan, and it's, what adversity has Lamar Jackson faced in his NFL career? I started looking up statistics, for Lamar Jackson to see if there are any answers in that, and there really are not. His first year, he didn't really start but 7 games. But if you look at his completion percentages from 58.2 to 66.1 to 64.4%, he's a mid-60s completion guy. The things that I find interesting in his difference between 2019 and last year in 2020 is that his touchdown percentage dropped from 9% to 6.9%. His touchdown throws dropped by 10, and he was sacked more 29 times last year. And his yards per game actually dropped in a year where, after 2019, Harbaugh said, well, we're going to give this guy more of an opportunity to throw the football. His yards per game dropped from 208.5 to 183.8 yards per game. His rushing yardage, on the other hand, remained pretty solid. He had a bigger rushing year in 2019 than he did in 2020. That 13-2 season, I think, has a lot to do with unfamiliarity and nobody expecting what they got. In 2020, people had a better idea, but he still went 11-4 as starting quarterback. So what adversity has he faced? And I will tell you this about quarterbacks. I don't know a single one who hasn't gone through a period of time where it's like, whether it was, after Bettis left Pittsburgh, and how do you retool yourself when you're a run, and then you're a throw the ball 20 times a game team and your run is no longer effective? What do? Every quarterback has their turn in the hot seat when teams either adapt to what they're doing or teams force them into schemes that they're uncomfortable with. My feeling is, last year, teams said, okay, here's how we're going to handle Lamar Jackson. And clearly doesn't stop him from running and getting yardage, but it did drop his pass yardage to 183 yards a game. I honestly don't see the Ravens winning big postseason games with that kind of offense. And the fact that the Ravens defense has been showing holes and is not as dominant as it has been in John Harbaugh's history as head coach. The first adversity that he's never had to face is what it is to play with a team like the Browns, whose defense sucked last year. The Browns' defense was as bad a defense as I have seen in the secondary and in the linebacking core. Really bad. And giving up passing yardage to average quarterbacks. And we were never really ever in a position to take over games because we were in games that were too close, because our defense gave up points at the absolute worst times. And they were forcing themselves to stay on the field longer and longer. We also had injuries on the defensive side of the ball. But at no time did Baker Mayfield really lose his head. And he continued to do what good quarterbacks do. Shut the fuck up and run the system. Now, when you get behind, the play calling has to remain firm. If you have a good running game, you have to use it. And in the case of the Cleveland Browns, the Browns utilized that and a real control passing game to tight ends and running backs that allowed us to complete a good percentage of our passes and to at least be able to stay on the field long enough to try to hide that hideous defense that we had. Lamar Jackson's never had to deal with this. In fact, I don't think that he's ever, I know what you're saying, Joe. It can't continue. It cannot continue that you're going to give up 18.5 points per game last year and do it again this year and win with a quarterback who's throwing for 183 yards a game. It ain't going to happen. Right now, Lamar Jackson sits on the bench waiting for his defense to just go ahead and turn the ball back to him. And there's no pressure on him whatsoever. It won't continue, believe me. If it's this year, next year, or the year after, eventually he has to prove that he can do things on his own and win despite an obvious team weakness. The fact that the Ravens have drafted so well and done so well, much kudos to the front office of the Ravens, doesn't mean it's going to last forever either. And it's interesting taking a look at this year's Ravens. I don't see how they're better offensively. I don't see how they are stronger offensively. And as far as defensively, they've lost some pieces. All I'm saying is, what will Lamar Jackson be like if they hit a swoon? What happens if they start out the first 6 games of the year and they're 2-4? What happens if they come out of the gate and things don't go as anticipated? Their defense doesn't hold teams to 18 points a game. What if they start giving up 25 points a game and it's going to force Lamar Jackson to have to do things that he has, as of yet, been unable to prove at the NFL level? Now, I will say this about Baker Mayfield, and I'm not going to compare these two quarterbacks because their athletic set is completely different. But Baker Mayfield has had to deal with the ups and downs of the business. He started out in a no-lose situation. He's the loved rookie that was the first-round pick, and he comes in and he does really well. And they fire the coach and hand the reins over to an inept offensive coordinator at the time, and with no system, no scheme. And then he has to listen to every pundit in America say, he's a bust. That was a one-year illusion. And that's what he had to carry on his shoulders from year 2 to year 3. And then when he got a real system, even without his best wide receiver, his most explosive, I should say, wide receiver, and having to rely upon people like Donovan Peoples-Jones and Rashard Higgins and Harrison Bryant, and having to deal with playing more tight ends because wide receivers were going down like flies, and playing alongside an injured Jarvis Landry, He led that team to impressive wins and a very impressive year. I don't think Lamar Jackson can do that. I'm gonna be proven wrong, maybe, but I don't think he can do it. And let me tell you one of the reasons why I don't believe it. The guy's gotten COVID for the second fucking time. Team leader, and he says, I'm iffy about the vaccine because it's a personal choice. You know something? Fuck you. Fuck you and your little arrogant personal choice. You have something you have to do. Baker Mayfield isn't talking about the huge amount of money he's going to sign for. He's interested in getting his head focused on what he has to do to win football games this year because we came up short last year. Lamar Jackson, on the other hand, is saying, I'm young, I'm strong, and if I get it a third time, I get it a third time. That's not the kind of shit I want to hear from a team leader. The other thing I don't want to hear from a team leader is they're our kryptonite. And you know something? Going to take a look at the goddamn Kansas City Chiefs, and they're a good football team. And they are the favorite, according to the pundits at ESPN, to win the Super Bowl. They were last year, too, and they didn't get it done, did they? But the fact of the matter is, they've got the guns, they've got the lineup, and they've got the quarterback. They have the escape quarterback that the Ravens have, better wide receivers, a better offensive scheme, and they're the team to beat in the AFC. On the other hand, Lamar Jackson, they're our kryptonite. Nobody wants to hear that from your leader. And it's like, why are they your kryptonite? Is that because your offensive coordinator or your head coach can't divine an offensive scheme to beat them? Is that the defense first concept of Harbaugh is really all wet in this era of offensive football? I don't know what it meant. It just meant, to me, it's like we pee our pants when we see the Kansas City Chiefs emblem. That's what it sounded like to me. And he's yet to beat them. And he's likely to get another chance at it. And we'll see how he does. But he just strikes me as a guy who, the way he ran out of, I was taking a prolonged squat and I have diarrhea and I'm going to come out here. Look at that film, folks. Look at that film when he came out on the field and beat the Cleveland Browns in the fourth quarter. If we had any kind of a defensive secondary on that field, those passes were ducks. They were wobbling and they didn't even have velocity on them. We were terrible. If we can improve our defensive secondary by 25%, he doesn't win that game. He's not for shit coming from behind. He's a front runner. And if you can get ahead of these people, they're not gonna beat you. They're gonna continue right on as they've proven because they lied. They said to their fan base, well, 2019 is 2019. We're really dependent upon the run and all that and dependent upon Lamar, and we wanted to make him comfortable. 2020 is the year we're going to break through, and we're really going to let him do the things that he can do, and he's going to show you folks things that you didn't see. I didn't see a goddamn thing last year that I didn't see the year before. Nothing at all. So the bottom line there is vastly talented player, but he's a guy who believes that good things are always going to happen to him. And that's not the way the NFL works. My prediction that I will say now is the biggest disappointment is going to be the Ravens. And I don't know how they're going to achieve that, but I just have an inkling, a feeling, and you know that I never said this about the Steelers. When the Steelers were in their prime, it was like, well, they're always going to find a way to win. I don't feel that way about the Ravens. Nor do I feel this way about the Browns. I think after 1 year, you're not going to be sold on Kevin Stefanski after 1 year. But the things that I see Stefanski doing makes me feel a whole lot better that there's a rhyme and a reason and a purpose. When I look at the Ravens, I see what they're not doing, and that's out of Harbaugh's comfort zone. And I think it's impeding the progress of Lamar Jackson, who cannot remain a running quarterback for the rest of his life because he's going to get hurt. Thank you, Derek Frisbee. Thank you. Yeah, 91. My dad's going to be 91. That is so awesome. I cannot begin to tell you. And it's been a rough couple of years for him. And he's doing better. God, he is the toughest guy I know. Tough. You think J.C. Tretter's tough? No. He's nothing compared to my old man. That guy's tough. Damn. If you only knew what he's overcome. Me just being one of them. And putting up 85 points in 2 games against Cleveland isn't shit, Joe. We had no defense, and that's my point. How do you put out that lousy defense on the field and still make it into the second round of the playoffs? How do you do that? And you give the Chiefs a better run for the money than the Ravens did. How is that possible? Playing with people who hadn't even met each other. People that just kept coming off the practice squad. It's nothing putting up points against last year's Browns. That don't mean nothing. Like I said, if the defense improves 25%, y'all are in deep fucking trouble. Because the offense is really not an offense that caters itself to turning the ball over. The Buffalo Bills have a big play scheme. And the fact that their percentage of interception is down around 1.7 to 2% is nothing short of remarkable. And that, by the way, is about the same amount that Lamar Jackson has. But he throws a hell of a lot less than Josh Allen does. The Browns are going to be throwing to tight ends. They're going to be throwing possession receivers like Higgins and Landry. And it's going to be suck you into the trick play, the end around, suck you into the deep pass, lull you to sleep with the run. That's what the Browns do. And if they can continue, there's 2 things that made the Browns effective last year. One is that they cut down the turnovers by a tremendous amount. That's the first thing. And God only knows they weren't healthy last year. The other thing that they were able to do, along with just, controlling the football and not giving things away, was that they had a balanced attack, that they were not afraid to use their running game. They didn't get into the mess that we've gotten into in years past where there's lopsided play calling, and there's too much run or too much pass and it's imbalanced. The Browns seem to understand that you get stronger as the game progresses by continuing to hammer away at your running game. We weren't even able to use that to our best advantage because our defense was so bad. You can imagine if the defense gets holds and gets people off the field, that running game becomes a battering ram. And do you think the Ravens are going to consistently stop the Browns' running attack? Take a look at the Browns' offensive line. Goodness gracious. And I know, Joe, and that's the arrogance of all teams that believe and all fans that believe. I'm not giving you a warning about the Browns. The Browns may not beat the Ravens either time they play. It's the Ravens aren't as good as you think they are. And it will be borne out this year. I think it's really hard to predict who takes the next step up. Because I have a feeling that Buffalo, I can't imagine that Josh Allen, like I said, is going to have statistically the kind of year that he had last year. You just don't ever know. But I just have a feeling. And my feeling may be wrong completely. But the other thing is, is he stupid for not getting vaccinated? No, it's just, this whole nonchalance about him, it's Kyrie Irving-esque. I'm kind of iffy about the vaccine, I'm just kind of iffy. I know I've gotten it twice, but I'm young and I'm strong. I am invincible. I am woman. You talk yourself into all kinds of shit. Nobody is invincible. And when somebody hits him knee first, or his cleats get stuck on the turf and his knee goes, he's going to learn that the secondary skills of a quarterback, like throwing the football, become very important. And he hasn't proven to me that he can carry a football team with his arm. Baker has proven to me he can do that. And he also has proven that he can come back from the worst national publicity anyone could have. You have no idea how the press is like, they're like Mr. Burns, for The Simpsons, That's what they're waiting for the next guy to fail. And if it's Lamar Jackson, who's put under pressure because his defense isn't as good and starts doing things that he hasn't previously been forced to do, and he makes mistakes, they're going to be all over him. You see, he really can't throw. He was a run-only quarterback over in Louisville, and now look at him. It's all he can do. I'm not even sure of that, Joe. I think that these two teams know what's on, what's online, on the line in these games. Do they end up being great regular season games? I don't know. I mean, one thing I can tell you is that with crowds piling into football stadiums this year, it's going to be a very different situation. And I feel much better that the Browns had that year of quiet and solitude last year. Because honestly, when you're learning a new system with all that noise and, that whole momentum factor was really deadened. And I think it was easier playing on the road last year than any other season in my recollection for the NFL. It's going to be really hard this year because the fans are going to be totally amped up. And it's not like I wish anything bad on the Ravens. I have no ill will toward the Ravens whatsoever. I think that Lamar Jackson and the offense has to prove that they can beat you with more than just their legs. And it's going to require players who can catch the ball reliably and a quarterback who can throw all patterns on the field, who has the arm strength to throw the ball across the field, over the middle, deep, all kinds of things. And I think it's easier to throw the deep ball when you're battering away at people and you're bringing safeties up to try to stop the running game. But if you're stopping the running game or you're forcing Lamar Jackson to be the running game, wow, you got big problems on your hands because they're going to be twin sets of cornerbacks and safeties waiting for the deep ball. It's not going to be as easy. I see Derek is commenting here in the chat room. Yeah, he'll be extended. I think that when you have no quarterback for as long as the Browns did, and the Bills, I mean, the Bills were still talking about Jim Kelly, for God's sakes. When it's been so long since you've had a guy who can bring you into the playoffs and has headiness and has drive and fits the city they're in. Josh Allen really has fit in very well to the great fans in Buffalo and a tragic Super Bowl history, and all those fans want one more shot at it, so no missed field goals this time, it's like, no goofy fumbles, no, we want our shot at this in 2021. I think how you fit in, I think Baker Mayfield fits in Cleveland extremely well. He's a guy who he's got a brashness, a cockiness to him, but he's got a work ethic, and he came in serious this year. You could tell by looking at his body and the way he's approaching his game that he learned what it was like to get on the wrong side of things, and he really worked at picking his game up. And I give him a lot of credit for that. And you got to pick yourself up when you get knocked down. I just don't think Lamar Jackson has gotten knocked down yet. That's all that is. Again, teams can't function without quarterbacks, and more teams have been brought down by thinking they found the right quarterback, only to find that the guy is not who they thought he was. I was also thrilled to see that Tony Dungy came in to talk to the Browns. You know, Tony Dungy is the reason that before this year and this last year that, you know, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers won, the first Buccaneers Super Bowl was really Tony Dungy's deal. You know, the fact that John Gruden got in the back door, that's all well and good. Tony Dungy was really a very fine coach, a good motivator, a great communicator. And it's great that this is the type of people that are being brought in to talk to the players to create a culture. This is not a Harry High School hoopla thing. This is more about, this is who we are. This is what our identity is. I thought it spoke just a ton to me in the when he first took over. Kevin Stefanski had all the players in a room saying who they were, what they enjoyed doing, what their dreams and aspirations are. Things that you wouldn't necessarily expect all NFL head coaches to do. They would be ramming their message down the throats of players. The Cleveland Browns seem to be grounded, which is something Jimmy Haslam is not, which is why I want him as far away from this as is humanly possible. Browns are a grounded team. And I think that they're developing a certain resiliency. That's what I saw more than anything last year with the lack of talent and depth in our defensive secondary and on our defensive line and our offensive line. We went at them with third string people and people off the practice squad and kept a cool head. We had guys like Michael Dunn out there playing, for God's sakes, and Hance playing out there on our offensive line. And we were running the ball their way. It wasn't like we were trying to hide them. We ran right over the Steelers, and Michael Dunn was a tractor out there. I think that it breeds a certain toughness and a certain pride that you attack your job with a certain pride. And that's been lacking in the Cleveland Browns almost entirely in the years past. And we found it now. And it'll be real interesting with more talent to go along if we can integrate this team camaraderie and team image, how far that this can take us. I think the Pittsburgh Squealers are going to surprise a few people, not in the sense that they're going to contend for the AFC North. They're going to beat some people that they're not expected to beat. And this is always like, you know, are they going to be as good as the Bengals? You know, it's an interesting question. The Bengals on their way up, but a year after an injury to their prized rookie quarterback. And I think Joe Burrow is a fine young quarterback. And the Steelers, I've gone back and looked at the Browns trouncing the Steelers in the postseason. And for as much as I want to say that Ben Roethlisberger's arm is shot because he threw some ducks, there was one play that I'd forgotten about where, you know, he kind of shook loose of a leg tackle and in the pocket and went off to his right. And it was the kind of play that Roethlisberger would fucking bury you with in the past. And he threw this duck that was 7 yards short of the receiver and the defender. It's like there was no arm behind it. And it's like, does he have arm trouble? And then when I saw the first play of the game, when he refused to dive on the field to cover a fumble that was in his end zone, folks, then I realized Roethlisberger's got a bad back. Remember the flak jacket that he kept wearing and he kept getting like more like the Stay Puft guy, you know, like the Michelin Man, because he's wearing this damn Kevlar vest. I think he has a bad back to go with it. And he just is not escapable or flexible. And I think the reason he's getting rid of the ball so quickly is because the throwing motion requires twisting. And believe me, I got a bad back and trying to play tennis. I don't play like I used to because it takes certain torquing and twisting. Same thing with the quarterback position. I think Ben Roethlisberger isn't long for the game. And I don't think the Steelers are going to win very much without him. but I think they're going to hurt somebody, whether it bites us in the ass or bites the Ravens in the ass. I'm not sure which one. Hey, Chad, how you doing? See some of the folks saying their hellos in the chat room. It's nice seeing folks. My guess in a 17-game season is that the Cleveland Browns will go 12-5. That's my guess. And my guess in the same 17-game season, I'm going to guess that the Ravens go 11-6. And but I just think that there are going to be a lot more questions with the Ravens than there have been in the past. And how Lamar Jackson adapts and how the organization adapts to a situation where if that run first mentality and running quarterback thing gets them into some hot water, how long are they going to stay with Harbaugh as coach? Because there's a real limiting factor as far as his vision of the way he sees the game. His vision is 25 years old. And in today's NFL, it doesn't beat kryptonite. You can't, the 18.3 points a game goes right down the shitter when you're playing Patrick Mahomes, doesn't it? That's the problem, is that nothing is static and standing still waiting for you. It's a very different league now than it was before. But it was great seeing Tony Dungy and talking to the Browns. And, so I'm giving you some indication on what I think will happen. Of course, these are things predicated on health. And we wish Lamar Jackson the best of health. I don't want to see him have COVID again. A third time, I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see him hurt on the field, or Baker Mayfield, or Joe Burrow, or Ben Roethlisberger. I don't want to see these people hurt. But it's all in the hands of fate. And whatever happens, happens. And whatever happens to you, you have to overcome. One thing I feel a lot more secure about is that Stefanski can game plan around a short team and a team that is lacking in ability. And I don't know. I know what Harbaugh would do. Harbaugh would just turn to the running game and try to keep it a low-scoring game and try to Eric Mangini his way through, and he won't win that way if he doesn't have his big weapons. The real question is, what would Brian Boitano do? Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. I'm off to celebrate 91, Dad. Yes! Yes, it's just let's give it up. It's the white marshmallow of hope. Hey, may all of us live to be 91 or older. And I'll say this about my dad too. He's still smart as a whip. I mean, he doesn't remember everything. Neither do I. I find that you see it failing on the air sometimes. It's like, what did he say? What did he say? He got that completely wrong. And there's something in this show I got completely wrong. James Hudson. James Hudson's an offensive tackle, not a defensive tackle. But I still say that James Hudson is a guy you better look out for, because I honestly believe that the offensive line for the Browns it hasn't stayed healthy, and I don't rely on Shredder and Conklin being able to make it through a 17-game season. That's going to be really, really difficult. That's what I think. So you see, there you have it. So I don't know. I'm already of an age now at 64 where my brain cells are dying, and that may explain why I'm saying what I'm saying about the Ravens. But when it's a cow talking, and it was my buddy, the white marshmallow of hope at my side, that we don't have to use the black cow of death to wish evil or bad on people. We have confidence that we have a good team. Kind of look like each other, don't we? Except my gut's bigger than his. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We're going to be back again on Friday, and we'll be talking specifically about playing Jacksonville and what's happening with the Browns and how their lineups are shaping up, their depth chart, and who's doing what. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and I'll see you Friday at 6 o'clock. Until then, Hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Bye-bye.